Well, the UK government has put the car industry in the dock and on the clock to go electric. But some of the biggest names in the business are struggling to keep up. Although, to be more accurate, some have hardly bothered to even try to start. Stakes are huge. They've been tasked with selling a certain percentage of zero-emission vehicles or facing some serious financial pain. Battle lines have been drawn. On one side, you have the brands that are all in, smashing their targets. On the other, legacy giants staring down the barrel of a multi-million-pound problem. Not all take it seriously, and not all ready to follow where the UK and European governments are forcing them to go. So, which companies are on a collision course with the 2025 ZEV mandate? And what does that mean for all of you, the car buyer? I'm Dave, and today I'm naming names and breaking down the numbers. Well, before we get to the winners and losers, let's just quickly cover what this is all about. The zero-emission vehicle, or ZEV mandate, is the government's main tool for pushing the car industry into the electric age. It's mirrored in Europe, the European Commission. For 2024, it means that 22% of every major manufacturer's new car sales had to be fully electric. That number isn't staying still. It climbs aggressively through 28% for 2025 to up to 80% for cars and 70% for vans by 2030, on the way to a 100% requirement by 2035. Though hybrids will still be allowed until 2035. So what's the penalty for failing? The headline media price is a daunting £15,000 fine for every single petrol or diesel car sold over the allowance. But here's the crucial twist. The government has built in some major flexibilities. These act as a safety valve, allowing manufacturers to trade ZEV credits with each other or borrow against their own future targets, but only within limits. In fact, recent changes mean that in 2025, a company could theoretically meet up to 90% of its targets just by using those credits. So, while the headlines warn of colossal fines, the reality is, for many, it's a massive cost, but not paid in the form of fines. They can still fudge and buy their way into compliance this year. Well, this brings us to the heart of the matter, a massive divide between the brands that were ready and those that are barely off the mark. First up, and this might be a shock, are the Japanese giants, Toyota and Mazda. For decades, Toyota has just rejected EVs and championed anything and everything else, mainly hybrids, but also hydrogen. Yeah, they're still trying to keep that dead duck alive. They've built a rock-solid reputation for efficiency in hybrids, but that laser focus has left them dangerously exposed to a mandate that, for now, is all about pure electric cars, or ZEVs. As of early 2025, Toyota had but a single model in the UK, the BZ4X, and pure electric sales worldwide were hovering at just 10%. 10.6 to be accurate. That's half of the 2024 requirement. Mazda's situation is even more critical. They just haven't bothered, with BEV sales figure just 1.7%. Yeah. Their expertise in petrol engines has put them on a direct path to either paying fines or writing a very large cheque to their competitors for credits. Could, of course, just go bust. Then there's Nissan. And this one's a real head-scratcher because this is the company that gave us the Leaf, one of the world's first mass-produced, mass-marketed EVs. They were the pioneers, yet somehow they've just fallen behind. Data from early 2025 shows Nissan's total offering is the outdated Leaf and the new Aria. And BEV sales at a mere 9.4%, putting them in the same struggling group as Toyota. While they are investing heavily in their Sunderland factory for new EVs and launching both the new Leaf and the Micra, those cars need to be selling now to make any difference at all. Well, next is Ford, and this is a good news, bad news story. After a slow start, Ford saw a massive surge in EV sales in the first half of 2025, growth of over 300%. Problem? That growth started from an incredibly low base. Despite the impressive jump, their overall EV share is still climbing towards the goal, but currently sitting in the mid-teens, long way short. It's a huge improvement, but still well short of the target, leaving them under immense pressure. Well, finally, you have the other giant, Stellantis, the Stellantis empire, which includes Vauxhall, Peugeot and Citroën. As a group, they're walking a tightrope. Their BEV sales were recorded at 20.9% early in 2025. That's agonisingly close to the 22% target for 2024, but still a fail. Shows that even for companies with a decent range of electric models like the Frontera, the Grand Panda, EC3 Aircross, there's absolutely no room for error. This is a high-stakes game with massive consequences, not just for car companies, but for all of us. If you want to stay ahead of the curve, by the way, on the biggest shifts in the auto industry, please subscribe. It does help us, and it's not all doom and gloom. Well, while some are scrambling, other manufacturers are proving that hitting these targets is not just possible, but profitable. Leading the charge, to absolutely no one's surprise, is Tesla. They have 100% EV sales. They don't do anything else, and they're the benchmark. Ironically, despite rumours that the carbon credits were coming to an end, they stand now to make a fortune selling their surplus ZEV credits to the very legacy brands that are failing to keep up. But it's not just the EV native companies. The German powerhouses have, for the most part, successfully navigated the transition. In early 2025, the BMW Group posted an impressive 34.4% BEV sales share, with Mercedes even further ahead at 36.6%. The Volkswagen Group, including VW, Audi and Skoda, was sitting comfortably around 21.5%, just shy of the 2024 goal, heading towards the 2025 target. And Mini, part of BMW, has seen its electric sales go through the roof, increasing fivefold from January last year to this year. Well, these brands show that with the right investment and product, it can be done. And then there's the next wave of disruption, the Chinese brands. Companies like BYD, they're hitting the UK market with competitive and feature-packed EVs ready to soak up demand. Interestingly, MG, which is owned by the Chinese firm SAIC, actually saw its EV sales fall by 35% in early 2025, proving that success isn't guaranteed for anyone in this volatile market. Now, we need to take a quick glance at the relaxation of the 2025 targets. It's not a cancellation, the target's still there, but this just gives companies the ability to include things like future sales and extend when they have to hit the targets. For example, you might have spent 2 years building a brand new factory, but it doesn't start producing EVs until January 2026. This relaxation allows you to now include sales from that not yet finished factory in the 2025 figures. Obviously, you can't double count, so if you do count them now, to avoid paying the fines, you start 2026 well below target. That's why they've extended the due date, so they will not have to reach those targets until 2027 or 2028. But equally, obviously, if you haven't even started that new EV factory, you can't count anything. This will really sort the wheat from the chaff. So what does all this corporate drama mean for the average car buyer? Well, as always, it's a mixed bag. Besides all the wheeling and dealing, moving figures around the chessboard, you could see some pretty incredible deals on electric cars. As we get closer to the end of year deadlines, manufacturers who are short of their targets will be desperate to register as many EVs as they can to avoid buying expensive credits. This probably will mean huge incentives to get cars out of the showrooms and sold. Selling cars, even at a loss, could be very much cheaper than any other option. Pre-registering, by the way, is unlikely because they make zero revenue from that, nothing at all, until that car is eventually sold. Selling a 30k EV for 25k, for example, generates 25k, even at a loss. On the other hand, there's the option of the reduced choice. Brands have openly warned if they can't make the numbers work, they might just have to limit the number of petrol and diesel models they sell in the UK to stay compliant. Just stop selling them. While the expanded flexibilities have lowered the immediate risk of brands pulling out of the market, the threat of reduced model availability is being used as a powerful bargaining chip in conversations with governments. Just stop making petrol and diesel cars, including hybrids, and the numbers even up very quickly. Well, this whole situation puts the government's strategy under the microscope. Is the ZEV mandate a masterstroke that's successfully fast-tracking all of us to a cleaner future, or is it just a blunt instrument that risks creating chaos and punishing consumers with less choice? Forcing manufacturers to increase the number of ZEVs, that's pure EVs, is part of their target. Indirectly forcing them to sell fewer ICE cars is also a win for the government. The trouble is that comes entirely at the expense of the manufacturer. Can any even afford to do that? Petrol, diesel and hybrid sales are nowhere near back to where they were before COVID 5 years ago. Nowhere near. And all this conversion to EVs has cost them dearly. The ZEV mandate has split the UK market into two. There's a clear divide between the manufacturers who were prepared and those who are now playing a very expensive game of, well, let's wait and see and do a final catch-up. Giants like Toyota, who once seemed untouchable, are now facing the tough choice of paying fines or paying their rivals. Meanwhile, brands like BMW, Mercedes and Renault are proving that a successful transition is possible. Well, this next year will be critical. We'll see if the struggling brands can turn things around or if they'll be forced to write enormous cheques to stay in the game. The decisions they make will shape the UK car market for years, affecting what cars we can buy and how much we pay for them. So what do you think? Is the mandate a necessary evil to force the electric transition to reach net zero 2050, or is it an unfair, ill thought out and poorly implemented policy that will ultimately hurt not only car buyers, but the very survival of the car industry as we know it? Has the government got it wrong? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. I'm Dave.